Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of 10 Words or Less, in which I ask brief questions of interesting people and request brief answers in return. My name's Mike Prager. I'm a certified wellness coach, a professional speaker, and the author of two books, Fat Boy, Thin Man, and Sustainable You. This is one of a series of almost 80 interviews that you can find at michaelprager.com/10 words or less, where the 10 is 10, not TEN. And today's is part of a subset of those interviews, a growing subset, in which I talk to professional speakers. My guest is a recent past president of the National Speaker Association and a recipient of both its highest earned and bestowed honors. He'll be presenting ideas and solutions to NSA's New England chapter on February 7th, an event that's open to the public. He's the author of 4 books, including Do It Well, Make It Fun, which sounds like a fine prescription for life. He's a nationally known humorist whose clients have included the U.S. Senate and the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Johns Hopkins and U.Va, Verizon, and Safeway. Before we start our conversation, here's my usual admonishment to those of you playing at home. 10 words or less is an intention, not a limit. So please forget about counting. To paraphrase old college pals, let's see you do it before you spout off. Now, Ron, I know the answer, but I always start this way. Please spell your first, well, as many names as you wish to include, as you wish them to appear in print.
So it's Ron, R-O-N, and Culberson is C-U-L-B as in boy, E-R-S-O-N.
Excellent. Thank you. Born when and where? Please be specific.
I was born in Abingdon, Virginia in 1960, but grew up in Emory, Virginia, which is 10 miles up the road in the middle of nowhere.
And I noticed you did not give your birth date. Is that privacy concern or you don't have to? Yeah. But okay. Was there anything unusual about the circumstances of your birth?
Yes, I came in with such force, my mother went deaf in one ear.
Really?
Yeah, she had mumps.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Did she hold it against you?
Well, that's a good question. I need to ask my therapist that. I'm not sure.
Okay, where do you live now?
We live in Central Virginia in the Blue Ridge Mountains near Charlottesville.
And how would you describe your work?
I am primarily a keynote speaker where I talk about the balance between excellence and fun.
Excellent. Tell me, what was an early influence on you outside your immediate family?
You know, I studied humor. Like, I loved watching comedians. And when I say studied, I just watched them all the time.
Okay. What was the first time you spoke in front of an audience?
Wow. Gosh, I did it my whole life. I was a sort of a natural show off, so I was in front of people all the time. But my first real performance, I would say, was in a Rotary talent show in 1978.
And you were 18 years old?
Yep.
Okay. Tell me something you've learned. I noticed that you like to volunteer.
Right.
Something you've learned from volunteering.
As a social worker, I used to be surrounded by people who were less fortunate than me. And because I don't practice social work anymore, volunteering puts me in the position of, I think, humbling me to understand that I'm very blessed in what I have and that there are others that are less fortunate. And when I can help, keeps me grounded.
Excellent. A lot of people think of volunteering, I got to give up some of my time and, you got to deal with all those people. It's not that way for you?
No, well, it is that way with me, but I think I've embraced the concept as something I actually formulated as part of my business plan, is that it's what I do rather than add on. I see it as part of what I do.
I see. How much of being funny is innate?
Well, I don't know if I can put a percentage on it, but I believe there are certain people that just see the world funny, and that's natural. And then we build on that. And then there are people that don't, that learn to, but I was born with this gift of being able to see the world slanted.
Can you give me an early example of how you saw the world slanted?
So a friend asked me about this recently. When I was very young, probably early high school, middle school age, I developed a routine called the Invisible Wrestler. I thought it would be really funny to see one side of a wrestling match where you only saw one person. So I pretended to have an inflatable opponent and then did a pantomime to being wrestled with somebody that wasn't there. And I just thought that was a very funny concept.
And when's the last time you did that routine?
Long time ago. That's actually the question my friend asked me. Are you still doing that? I said, look at me, I'm 55. I'm not doing that anymore.
Okay. Tell me, to you, a particularly funny person that folks might not think of at first.
Mark Sanborn. Mark Sanborn is hilarious. And yet his image as a speaker and a leader is one of very sort of profound thinking and insight. And yet he's the guy, if you sit next to him at a meeting, it will get you in trouble.
I know who Mark is. Please tell us who Mark is.
Mark is a past president of the National Speakers Association, wrote a book called The Fred Factor, and he does a lot on leadership, customer service, that kind of thing.
Great. Tell me something you learned recently about being funny.
Well, I don't know if I would say this is recently. It was reinforced recently. I read a lot of books about comedians and entertainers, and I read Judd Apatow's book on where he interviewed comedians. And the recurring theme time and time again is that there's this insecurity that people use humor as a way to be confident. And what I learned is that oftentimes people use humor in order to take control of the situation. In other words, if I'm laughed at and I'm not in control, that's very uncomfortable. But if I'm laughed at because I'm in control of creating the laughter, I feel much more comfortable. That was a huge insight because I saw myself doing that my whole life.
So getting back to your therapist, you do have that insecurity.
Of course. Well, you know, I'm a social worker by training, which means that I went through a lot of introspection. I've been in counseling, been in therapy. I know a lot about who I am. And I think most speakers have some level of insecurity. I mean, we're getting our benefits by being in front of other people. That to me often comes from a lack of confidence or security. And so we get reinforced in that manner. It's kind of complicated. I won't go into the details, but that's kind of my take on it.
Got it. On your website, I found the mathematical expression, funny plus audience equal laughter. And I'm just wondering, is there more wisdom to that than I'm receiving?
Say that again. Say it again for me, because I was thinking about something else when you said that.
Okay. You know the equation I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Funny plus audience equal laughter?
Yeah.
Is there some wisdom hidden in that I'm not getting? Because to me, it sounds like if you're funny in front of an audience, of course they're going to laugh.
Yeah. Well, and the opposite of that would be is if you're funny by yourself, no one else laughs. If somebody laughs in the woods and there's no one there to hear them, is it still funny? I think the point being that.
Wait a second. I'm sorry to interrupt. What's the answer to that?
Yeah. Well, that's a good point. I think why a lot of people go into humor is because of the immediate feedback of the laughter from the audience, and that's a huge. In my opinion, it's both a gift both ways. I get a huge gift from it, receiving from the audience. Hopefully, it's a gift to the audience when they receive the humor. But yeah, it's intended to be this understanding that this is something that people want and I believe need and appreciate.
Tell us a takeaway that you'll be offering at NSANE February 7th.
I'm not sure everybody understands that the greatest gift that they have when speaking is the uniqueness of who they are. I think a lot of people strive to be something else in their delivery, in their style, in their content, when in fact they have the magic formula in their uniqueness. And so hopefully I'll be able to flesh that out with the group.
Thank you. How about something else?
Well, I'm going to emphasize, because of my style, again, sharing the gifts that I have and what I believe I bring to the table is to talk about the power, the metaphorical power of storytelling and how much more content can get across through stories than through charts and graphs and PowerPoint. And then also how humor functions very similarly if done appropriately, that we're tapping into a powerful metaphor by using both of them.
Okay. Offer us a tip, please, on being a good MC.
MCing is an art, just like anything else, and it takes work and takes effort. And I think when people just show up thinking they just have to read what's given to them, they're not really doing their due diligence. So I'm going to talk about it as a purposeful way to make an event better, and how you can be the glue that comes through. So for instance, doing segues to tie one segment to the next in every introduction, every time you take the stage, making it fluid and fun.
And do you usually know what those segues are, or do you have one in case one doesn't occur to you, or are you counting on something that's come up to connect that to where you're going next?
I do both. I primarily want to do something in the moment because that's more powerful. So if I comment on something that just happened in a funny way, it's way better than if it's a prepared line. But if I don't come up with something, I will have a prepared line ready to go so that I still have that continuity to offer.
Got it. Has being in the Speakers Hall of Fame had any concrete value for you?
Yeah, it's very hard to say. Obviously, it goes in my promotional materials. It's something that people use in my introductions or my bios. What I don't know is if that made any influence on their decision making. I think with both the Certified Speaking Professional and the CPAE, both of those awards are industry awards within our own industry, the speaking profession. So they clearly mean a great deal in that organization, in that industry. What it means outside of there is hard to know. For me, it's very hard to track that, I think. I'm proud of it. I'm proud of it because it's a personal achievement for me. But then the bottom line business value is sometimes hard to track.
Got it. On a scale of laughter, please rate IRS audiences.
All right, so I'm a big believer that any particular group, whether it be accountants, lawyers, doctors, when you get them into a room by themselves, they have a good time. I spoke at a funeral directors conference a few months ago. Fantastic, funny group of people, but nobody would ever know it. I think everybody has that potential.
Okay. Do you find that people try to be funny around you because you're funny?
My funny friends do. I don't think people that don't do this on a regular basis do that, attempt that. But you get a group of humorists together, and all we're doing is trying to outwit one another.
Okay, then I'll have to own, I guess, that that's just me, because you laughed a second ago at something I said, and I'm just gonna like revel in that all day long. Something about you that surprises people.
I have a Mickey Mouse tattoo.
Oh boy, where?
On my arm. And
Okay.
my wife asked me why, and I said, it's a great story. And when I'm 80 and I go to the doctor, that's going to be hilarious. Unless it looks like Goofy.
When, maybe Pluto, though, by the time, because it got a longer face. Now, when did you get that and why?
Yeah, like 20 years ago. I just thought it would be kind of funny. It's ironic to me that I have this sort of macho, nowadays tattoos are not necessarily macho, but back in the day, 20, 30 years ago, they were. And I thought it was hilarious that I got this macho tattoo that was Mickey Mouse.
Okay, something about people that surprises you.
I think in this day and age, I'm routinely surprised by how mean people can be on social media, in person even, just with an aggressive kind of tone and a, sort of, I wouldn't say cruelty because that may be too strong of a word, but just meanness.
What can you do about that?
Well, what I've chosen to do is that in almost all of my posts, my social media, my presentations, I try to be non-controversial and I try to be positive in the way that I present material. My feeling is I'm putting a vibe out there that is counter to what seems to draw a lot of people in these days. Okay.
Now, you're coming up on February 6th, staying overnight in the middle of winter, although I don't know, I don't imagine it's at least reliably much milder in Virginia than it is here. And your compensation is little more than a free dinner and expenses. What's in it for you? Why are you coming?
Well, that's a good question. And I think I actually said that to you when you called. I don't do this for any benefit because speakers are not my audience. They're not my clients. I don't sell to them. I don't gain monetarily from speakers, but they are my colleagues. And so if I have something that's of value that I can provide in this capacity, it kind of falls back into that volunteer mentality that I have. It's an opportunity to do something hopefully worthwhile.
Great. Well, I am certain that I will benefit from hearing what you have to say. I'm grateful that you're coming. In the show notes, well, that's somebody else's phrase. In the post that accompanies this video, I will put in the link to people who would like to come and see Ron speak on the 7th. It's in Waltham, Massachusetts. Ron, if you could stick around a little bit after we finish, but those are all my questions. Oh, I always throw in, what's the question I should have asked you?
Oh, that's a really good. I think you covered a lot of ground in a short amount of time. You know, what a lot of people usually ask me is how I got into the speaking business. And, you know, it was because I was funny in the world of hospice care as a social worker. And I think I stood out. And because I stood out at conferences, I got a lot of requests to speak. And so.
Yeah, that is quite a big reason, I think. Funny in the face of death.
Yep.
All right. Maybe that could be your epitaph. Yeah. Ron Culberson, thank you very much for spending your time with us. And I look forward to seeing you in February. Until then, so long.
Thanks so much.
Okay.